Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Breaking 90 podcast. I am your host, Alex Harriman, and I'm here today with a special guest, Mr. Jonathan Goodman. I'm going to give you a little bit of a background on John and how I know him, and then we'll dive into it. I think you guys are going to really love this. So John is one of my biggest mentors in the fitness industry over the past 5 years that I've had my own business. And I first discovered John, like I said, about 5 years ago when I started looking into the online training world. My son was born shortly after this, and I knew I needed an alternative to working in the gym because I didn't want to be spending every evening in the gym instead of at home with my family. And I came to find the online training world where John's name is one of the biggest ones in the industry. So he's written 11 books for the training and coaching industry, and he's also the creator of the Personal Trainer Development Center and the Online Trainer Academy. And I'm really honored and excited to have him here to speak with you guys today. So, John, without further ado, thanks for being here.
Yeah, buddy, my pleasure. What does the 90 mean from Breaking 90?
Good question. So, my original background in fitness came from an Olympic and powerlifting background. So it came from breaking 90 degrees in a squat. Actually, it was something that I talked to my clients a lot about when I was an in-person trainer, but it's kind of adapted and evolved since then. So what it really means to me is still doing everything with a full range of motion, doing movements with a full range of motion, but not taking shortcuts in anything we do. So always trying to do everything to the fullest potential, to the fullest extent that we can, and doing it right and getting what we can out of it without taking shortcuts. So it's actually interesting because we don't have as much emphasis on exercise as we used to. We've taken on a whole nother approach with whole health coaching and a lot of nutrition coaching, but it still really applies to the fact of not taking shortcuts, not looking for fad diets. We do everything fully. So that's where it grew from anyways.
It worked out really nicely for you, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It's something that anybody who ever worked with me in person can remember me hearing me say, because it was one of my biggest pet peeves in the gym was people loading on weight as their squat just got more and more shallow.
Right. Well, it's yeah, I mean, it's kind of a shit name for like whole life coaching, but then the metaphor is really, really powerful.
Yeah.
So yeah, that worked out really good.
It is for sure. And it's one of those things. It's one of those things where I'm like, I'm not going to change this now because we're known for it and people like it and what it stands for, and it still has a lot of meaning to me. But now that we don't actually focus on powerlifting and Olympic movements that heavily, it's funny to still have that background to it. But a lot of people don't even ask.
No, I mean, it's actually a great story to tell. You know, here's what we believe.
Yeah.
We believe that a lot of people will do the bare minimum to get by, and that's totally fine for most of the people. They're not for us. Right? The people that we love to work with are the people who like to push the envelope a little bit, the people who like to, you know, go in the full range of their capabilities. And it's a great little shtick that you got there. I like it. I actually never knew that. Knowing you as long as I've known, I should have asked earlier.
I think most people don't actually. I don't.
You should tell it. You should tell that story.
Yeah. Well, I guess I just kind of did.
There you go. Cheers to my mini Coke, my 235 milliliter Coca-Cola with excesso calories and excesso azúcares. There you
go. Guessing that one didn't come from Canada. I guess I should give a little bit of a background here. So John lives in Toronto. You guys live right in Toronto, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's technically Toronto. We're in Etobicoke, but Etobicoke doesn't really exist anymore since the amalgamation. So
yeah, that's all Toronto to me. I mean, I grew up in Northern Ontario, so everything south of Barrie is actually still Toronto.
Right. Yeah, fair enough.
So he lives in Toronto with his wife Allison and their son Calvin, who's actually the same age as my son Emerson.
That's right.
And and you guys are expecting another kid. Congrats.
We are. Thank you. Yeah, it's super. It's been a hell of a journey, which we can talk about, of miscarriages and cancer and a whole bunch of other shit. So yeah, this is a bit of a miracle child. We're super excited.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine. Do you already know gender?
We don't. We're going to keep it a surprise.
Cool.
We knew the gender of the first one. We knew that Calvin was going to be a boy. It was actually a really funny story. When Allison was pregnant with Calvin, we were traveling across the world, right? And we did checkups. We did midwife checkups in Hawaii, on Kauai, on the island of Kauai. And then we did the obs-gyne, the dating ultrasound, and we figure out the gender. We did that on Koh Samui. We were living on an island called Koh Phangan in Thailand, and we took the boat across the ocean to Koh Samui, because that's where the only obs-gyne was. And we actually got stuck on Koh Samui. There was flooding up to our knees. We caught the last boat over there, and the water was too rough. It didn't go back. So Allison and I had a little vacation, but we trudged through knee deep. I'm not making any of this up. We trudged through knee deep water to the only obs-gyne on the island. And it was hilarious, because, you know, it's not like it is in Canada where you have a technician and whatever it is. The obs-gyne is the one doing the tool, reading the thing, talking to you at the same time. Like, it's one person, right? And she asked us, she's like, "Oh, do you want to know the gender?" And Alice and I, of course, looked at each other, and we talked about it, but, you know, we were kind of shy. We're like, "Oh, I don't know." yeah, we do. And she goes, "Boy." We're like, "Wait, what?" Like, this is like the biggest news item. She's like, "Boy." We're like, are you sure? She, no joke, I have the picture, I can show it to you. She draws an arrow to the little fetus's penis on the picture, writes the word "boy," prints it, and gives it to us.
That's amazing. You had no chance to back out.
Yeah, so we still have this picture of just this arrow pointing to Calvin's penis when he was in utero, with the word "boy" written there. But this one, we kind of there's not many surprises like this that kind of still exist in the world, right? So we thought it'd be kind of fun to just wait. We have no idea what we're going to name this thing. Like, we don't know.
It's cool. It's cool because Alex can work for a girl or a boy if you guys decide to do that.
Yeah, we'll probably not. But I mean, that's cool.
I think you're pretty calculated in the decisions you make. So I know with myself, like when Emerson was first being born, myself and my wife, we both felt like we had to know, because it was just like every decision we make, we like to plan for and right. try to control the outcome. But I totally understand what you're getting. But I think the stress of not knowing at that time, at least with the first kid, would have done me in.
With the first kid, I think it would have. With the second, I mean, I don't know. We got one. Like, we're going to be happy no matter what happens, especially the journey to having the next child. For us, it's been such an up and down emotional journey. We're just so happy, man. We're just so happy that, you know, we're able to have another child, and everybody's healthy, and, you know, everything looks good. That it doesn't matter, you know. But yeah. Secretly, I want it to be a girl.
Do you?
Well, I mean, we already have a boy. I already know what that's like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of want it to be a girl, but honestly, I don't really care. But yeah, a girl would be my preference. But I don't care.
I could see that for sure. Yeah, you guys have been through a hell of a roller coaster. So I couldn't be more happy for you guys. It's really exciting.
Yeah, thanks, man.
So you kind of touched on it earlier, and this is something that I wanted to dig into. But you guys obviously travel quite a bit. Would you say half the year pretty much you're traveling?
We've been, for the last 9 years, we've traveled 4 to 6 months out of every year, on average. So I haven't calculated the number of days. I did a very ballpark estimate, and I know it's over 1,300 days that we've lived abroad. Wow. In the last 9 years. But yeah, it's generally 4 to 6 months. 1 year we did about 8 months, 9 months.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, basically every winter we're gone. Yeah.
And where are you guys right now?
We're in Mexico. we're in a little fishing village that's now kind of like a surf spot called Sailita, which is about 45 minutes north of Puerto Vallarta on the Pacific side. We like it here. This is our 4th winter here. We've got a community. Like, I'm looking across the road right now. My mother-in-law's apartment is across the road. She comes with us.
Cool.
And above us are friends with kids around Calvin's age. Beside us are friends that are about Calvin's age, that have kids that are about Calvin's age. I mean, we've got another life here. Calvin goes to Spanish immersion school. It's beautiful. And so, yeah, man, there's a lot of like fears about Mexico. I'll tell you, I've lived in a lot of places around the world. Combination of just general kindness, thoughtfulness, family values with culture, music, energy, vibrancy, color. You can't match Mexico.
Yeah, I've only ever been to Mexico on a resort, so it's obviously completely different than what you're experiencing.
You could be anywhere in the world. That's irrelevant. Yeah, that's irrelevant. Nah, I mean, you get into the little pueblos and stuff like that. It's a different world, man, and it's just so much fun. It's so much fun. Like put it this way: to drive to Calvin's school in the morning, we drive our golf cart through the jungle. And we have to go a different way because we kept getting stuck in the river that we were driving through. So now we have to go the long way around. And we go through the jungle. We have to avoid horses. A chicken has fallen on top of our golf cart multiple times from the sky. We usually see a few giant iguanas. And there's multiple horses. Just to get to school. Yeah.
I'm just picturing how my own son Emerson would love this journey. How exciting that'd be! I can't imagine the stories that Calvin has.
Oh my God, he's just hilarious. Like, I'll post videos every once in a while. I'll be like, I'm going to school. Oh, a chicken fell from the sky. Yeah, I mean, it's a different life. It's a different world, right? But it's just there's so much to experience here. And Calvin's still in junior kindergarten.
Yeah,
and once he gets into grade 1, we'll think about kind of more structure, but for now he's in Spanish immersion school here. He's still in school.
Yeah, what an experience.
Nanny that works with us here, and our nanny who works with us here was a teacher for 20 years. Like, she does
amazing
like tutoring with him as well, so it's not like he's going to be behind. There's a lot of families here that very much believe in the unschooling movement. And you can absolutely do it here, right? A lot of people here, their kids just don't go to school. And that's because the parents are North Americans for the most part, and they just don't believe in it. I'm not quite in that camp, but I think particularly from a very early age, being able to expose a child to those kinds of experiences and just be comfortable with different people. I mean, Calvin has now lived in something like 10 different countries. He's been on like 33 flights. I mean, he's lived like Dominican Republic when he was a year and a half old. He'd be bounced on our security guard's knee with a shotgun in the other hand, to a toothless security guard. And then, traveled around Montenegro, popped up to Serbia with us, and lived in Greece with us, and stuff like that. So just the different types, I mean, the sights, the sounds, the different types of people, the different languages, the smells that he's been exposed to. And it's a really beautiful thing to watch him now just approach people. Doesn't matter what they look like, right? And he'll just approach a person like a person. Even in Toronto, we went to Kensington Market a couple of weeks before we left for Mexico. And we just went to Kensington Market. We got tacos, we walked around, we bought him a Ninja Turtles toy, like whatever, right? But we sat in the park there at Kensington Market, for anybody who's familiar. And across from us, there were 2 homeless men who were just having a conversation. And one of them, the younger guy, brought the older guy a beer, and they were talking. And the younger guy was telling the story of how he had slit his wrists and got into a mental institution. And now he's out and he thinks he's better, but he's not quite sure. And Calvin just was smiling at them and saying hello. And just, they were smiling and saying hello back. Right. I mean, obviously we were there. They weren't dangerous people.
Yeah.
But just to be able to see a person as a person, you know. It's
Wow.
pretty cool to be a part of.
Yeah, he's gonna have experiences that'll be so amazing going forward, regardless of what you guys decide to do once he gets to grade 1. It's experiences that he's gonna remember forever. Cool. There's something I can almost hear the audience screaming as they're listening to this right now, and it's how do you fit it all in?
How do I fit what all in?
Well, I mean, like you're writing books, you're creating courses, you've got a business that's obviously very successful. You travel for half the year. Your own fitness, your own health. Like what's this look like for you?
Well, I'll take it from the top. One thing that Allison and I have learned, Allison's my wife, one thing that we've learned, picking up and moving all of the time actually forces you to become really, really, really good at time management and routine. And it also makes you really good at getting rid of all of the shit and baggage in your life, physical and metaphorical. And I'll give you 2 examples of that. The first is when you got to carry everything you own. I mean, we traveled before Calvin. We traveled just a backpack, right? Like we didn't own anything. I rented a furnished condo in the summer and a car in the summer. And then I gave back the keys and we left for the winter. Did that for 5 years. When you do that, you constantly are forced to reassess what matters to you and what doesn't in terms of stuff, but also in terms of social connections. And I was surprised, I won't say you, I was very surprised the first time that I went away at who I missed and who I didn't miss. And I realized that the people who I was closest to, you know, the people that I missed, were not necessarily the people who I saw as often as other folks who might have been close to me because they were, you know, it was convenient to see them a lot. We crossed paths in our lives, in our work, we live close to one another, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that at all. I have friends, I have neighbors who I see every single day who I know are like, I'm happy to see them, right? But if I moved away, would I call them? Would I go out of my way to see them? And so when I say it forces you to reestablish it, when you pick up and move and travel for extended periods of time, forces you to get this really clear vision of just what and who really matters to you. And people who, I won't say that people don't matter to me, that were more like friends of convenience, you know, along the way. I'm always happy to see them if our paths cross, but I don't go out of my way to see them.
Right.
I have basically one friend that I go out of my way to see. And there's a closeness there that's unmatched. But there's this, with social engagements, there's this like kind of requirement to attend that I think is kind of garbage a lot of the time. That if you really think about like, is this going to improve my life? Am I going to enjoy this? You know, are these people really that important to me, or do I feel guilty not going because they invited me? It helps that way. The second is I found that when I put my fitness first, the rest of my life falls into place very, very quickly.
Yeah, I've heard you say that one a lot.
It's true. The first thing that we do whenever we land in a new place, the first thing, we basically put our bags down, and then Allison and I decide what our workout schedule is going to be. First thing that we do. And we might walk around town and look at the gyms and stuff like that. We've usually done some research before. And we figure out what our schedule is. And then we build the rest of our day around that. Because I mean, from a mental health and physical standpoint, like to me, exercise is everything. But B, just everything else in my life falls into place, right? When I eat, when I work, when I'm able to have really good one-on-one time with Calvin, what kind of support that we're going to need for him, if we need any kind of support, all of that just kind of, it's hard to explain, which is why I haven't been able to write about it really well. You kind of have to experience it. Fitness, I feel like, and putting in workouts is often something that people put in, if you know, like the big rock theory, like I think it's Stephen Covey thing, where you do all your big rocks first and then you fit in the small rocks and then the sand. fitness and working out for a lot of people seems to be kind of the same. They fit it in around the fringes, right?
Agreed.
What I figured out is even if it's not the number one priority, and I'll get into that in a second about how priorities actually of mine shift throughout the year and what they are. Even if it's not the number one priority, it's scheduled first because naturally everything else falls into place when I do that. And that's just something I've learned over the years. And again, that's something that I've learned over the years of just moving around so much and having to redo my schedule so many times. You know, you think about getting into patterns at home. Man, when was the last time you actually had to redo your schedule from scratch?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I mean, I'm glad you touched on all of this because both mental health and physical health is something that we cover a lot with our coaching clients. And even the small schedule changes that come with everybody's year, say September 1st when school comes back in, and the holiday schedule on January 1st. What I'm really curious listening to you say this is like, how did you guys come to figure this out though? Like, was it like a catastrophic failure in the beginning when you started traveling and for you guys to determine how this was going to look?
What do you mean? Can you explain the question a little bit more?
Yeah, like it seems like you've got a really good routine. So you get to your destination or wherever you're traveling and you guys determine, okay, this is what our workout schedule is going to look like, our training schedule is going to look like. When you first started this journey with Allison, obviously you guys didn't have kids back then. Did you still do that? Or
nah, I mean, we didn't have kids. It was easy.
True.
People who don't have kids have no idea just how goddamn more difficult life is when you have kids. Like it's funny how little people who don't have kids understand. Like there's just nothing you can say to make the, oh yeah, no, I get you busy. It's like, no. You don't know shit. Like you don't know shit about anything, man. Like, it's just, I think back to being a 22-year-old personal trainer, holding my clients with 3 kids who are professionals in contempt because they showed up 7 minutes late to a workout. It's like, I didn't know shit. So no, we didn't. I mean, it was easy. Like, you know, we were young people with money, you know, like especially back then. You can't do it as much anymore, but global arbitrage was like a real thing back then. I mean, I'm talking like 2013, 2014. For example, I was earning US dollars. I own nothing at home. I had no debt. I own nothing at home, right? And I was living in Thailand. Man, the amount of money we put away.
Right.
Like, so it's not, you can't do that to the extent. I mean, but again, my lunch, like I'm living in Mexico. I had 3 tacos for lunch. It was 45 pesos. That's $2.50.
Yeah.
And so you think about, you know, a lot of people think that they can't perhaps afford, like time is a totally different thing, but a lot of people think that perhaps they can't afford to live abroad, particularly if they have a mortgage, you know, back at home. And yeah, we have a house in Toronto. Houses in Toronto ain't cheap, right? Our mortgage is big. But, you know, we have friends staying in our house. We could rent it out. We don't want to, but we have friends staying in our house. And still, it's interesting because I've done some back of the napkin math. And the cost of living in Toronto is so high these days that floating a mortgage in Toronto plus paying rent in Mexico, being in Mexico for 4 months in the winter is actually pretty close to break even.
Crazy.
That's the difference in the cost of living.
That's crazy.
And so when you start to actually, a lot of people when they're thinking, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about money stuff. You mentioned that maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't, but when you start to think about like the financial part of it, and if that's the stopping point, well, you got to take into account day-to-day costs, like food costs, transportation. Allison and I can't go downtown and have a meal for less than $200.
Yeah.
We'll go out at a date night and snack at the 3 most expensive places in town here and spend $45. And that's like expensive, man. Like if we go out for dinner and it's more than $10 for both of us, it's an expensive dinner. Now we don't drink, so that helps.
Yeah.
But even then, a beer is 30 pesos. It's $1.50.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Big
Even
difference.
for people who smoke, like a buddy of ours smokes, said a pack is. I was asking about this yesterday. He says a pack of cigarettes. They're from Calgary. He says a pack of cigarettes in Calgary is $17.
Wow.
Here it's $1.70.
Wow.
So think about, like, if you spend a couple months abroad, consider the reduction in those expenses. We don't touch our credit card for months on end. And so there's a lot of like interesting things you can do there where you got to look past, oh, well, paying rent in one place and a mortgage in another place. Like, that's how to do it. It's like, yeah, it is. But there's a lot of ways that you'll save a lot of money too. That makes it more accessible. Right?
I mean, I think it comes down to priorities too, though, right? Like obviously it comes down to priorities, but it's the same as people prioritizing their health, their fitness, eating healthy, or whether they want to be able to go out and do extracurriculars. Like, at the end of the day, most of us are going to be able to afford the things that we prioritize high enough.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. And I want to talk about priorities, actually, because that's cool that you brought it up. But the other part of it, I mean, not just cost of living, not just food, but entertainment costs are zero. Right? There's no movies to go see. There's a local baseball team here that I really like to go see the games. It's like 7th tier Mexican baseball. It's the Nayarit, which is like the province that we're in, Nayarit. It's the Nayarit Winter League, and tickets for a game is 50 pesos. Cool. So like $2.50. So I go see games there, but there's no entertainment cost, right? Like nothing, like none, like zero. And think about, again, like if you go see shows or movies or whatever it is, there's live music constantly everywhere here. There's walking down the street is a show. Holy crap, man. Like there's just like horses dancing in the street sometimes. And you're like, I have no idea what's going on, but I'm gonna watch this horse dance in the street. And there's like a straight up Mexican cowboy, and I have no idea why they're here, but they are. And so this is going to be entertaining for me. Priorities. Let's talk about this. There's something I'm very passionate about, which I'm playing around with the idea. I'm going to restart a podcast that's going to be an interview podcast of mine in a few months, and I'm playing around with the idea of talking about the triad, or the Golden Triad. I don't know if I'm going to call it the Golden Triad because that's kind of chintzy, but it's this idea that there's basically 3 really important things that we balance. And if you picture them as a triangle, this isn't something I came up with, but health, wealth, and time. And each of them is points on a triangle. And there's really only one point in your life for most people where you have an opportunity to optimize all 3 of them, to be really great in all 3 of them. If you think about when you're young, when you're in your 20s, you generally have time, you generally have your health, you usually don't have that much wealth, right? Mm-hmm. If you think about when you're, a little bit older, and of course there's exceptions to this, but if you think about when you're a little bit older, you generally have wealth, you generally have time, you don't always have your health, right? Even if you have your health and you're not sick, you're not running around. Like if I feel like jumping on a stand-up paddleboard and going out in the ocean, or popping on a mountain bike and going in the jungle, like I can just do those things. Like you're not necessarily doing that, right?
Yeah.
But in your 30s and early 40s and even into your mid 40s, you have an opportunity to optimize all 3 of these things, right? Your health, your wealth, and your time. And I think that that's a golden opportunity. But in our society, for some reason, that's the time when everybody feels tremendous pressure to hustle. And then those years pass them by. And those years have the potential of being just these unbelievable, joyous, fulfilling years. And so, in terms of priorities, I think it's just recognizing where you are. Number one, like I kind of look at my life and I say, okay, well, I have 3 competing priorities, right? I have fitness, I have business, and I have family.
Yep.
Fitness is very important to me. My business is very important to me. My family is very important to me. I have not figured out a way to optimize all three at the same time. And I've effectively given up on that. But I feel fairly confident that I can optimize two of them at any given time and put the other one on cruise control, basically. Well, I'll explain that in a second. So family is always optimized for me. It's just too important. So family is always there.
Okay.
But fitness and business flip-flop throughout the year. So generally when I'm away, like where I am in Mexico now, fitness to me is more of a priority than business. So I'm trying to push forward my fitness. I'm trying to get into better and better shape, right? I'm putting a lot of emphasis on that. I'm making sure my sleep is really good. I'm making sure my nutrition is really good. I'm working out hard, like 7 a.m, the minute the gym opens, I'm at the gym every single day, right? Business is good, right? I'm working, but I'm not stressed that I'm not really pushing the envelope with it.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yep, absolutely.
Whereas when I go home to Toronto, it's the opposite, right? Again, family is always optimized. But then business, I'm trying to push the envelope, and fitness is maintained. And what this does is two things. Number one, it allows me to kind of push forward, one thing that I really care about. But more than anything else, it avoids the guilt that I'm not doing the other thing as much as I might do it, because I've separate than the fact, like separate than the point, because I've taken the time to kind of say, okay, well, like this is a time where fitness is going to be like my thing. I'm not guilty that I'm not pushing forward my business that much. And the same thing with fitness.
So I have a few questions on this then. So have you ever gotten to the point where you've focused so heavily on two that one has gone too far in the other direction?
No.
No.
No. I have not. There have been times where the business hasn't been going well. For sure. Doesn't mean that I wasn't working at it, just means I made some bad decisions, right?
Yeah.
And that's definitely true. The only times where fitness has really fallen by the wayside for me has been a couple trips years back. It hasn't happened for a number of years, but for example, the first time we traveled through Thailand, we lived in a cave in a very cave, like actually a cave. In a I'm not shitting you, by the way, it was actually a cave.
You're like the real life Batman.
There were bats that came in at night. No shit. There were, and it was a very remote part on an island in Thailand. Basically, it was a little place in Copenhagen called Had Yuan, where you arrive and you got to take basically this like tuk-tuk thing down to a boat. Then you got to take a boat around like the bay, and the only way to access it was a boat. And Allison worked as a healer in like a sanctuary there, and I had chased after her because I wanted to be with her, so I was just kind of tagging along. But there was no fitness anything there. And I mean, I went back to my like 110 pound, 115 pound John Goodman. Like I'm at about like 165 now, 170. So there have been a few cases like that where I just felt horrible. But yeah, not recently, not in a number of years. It's too important for my mental health, to be honest, man.
Agreed. Well, one thing that we really cover with Breaking 90 is the whole health approach. So really focusing on not letting any part of your health branch suffer in order to push another one forward. So we use the term our bare ass minimums, which kind of reminds me of what you're talking about there. And it's like, if you're going to kind of go through a maintenance phase on your fitness, that's okay. It doesn't always have to be push for the goal, but we have to set those bare ass minimums. What am I going to accomplish even on my worst day in order to not fall backwards? And that's kind of what you're explaining there, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I like that bare ass minimum. So how do you actually set those with people?
So we we go through what some of the most basic ones are. Like bare ass minimums, we'll say like, what's your vegetable intake? What's your fruit intake? We call it purposeful movement. So what is your bare ass minimum for purposeful movement each day? Your water intake, sleep habits, things you do for yourself. So what we try to get each client to do is set 3 bare ass minimums that they're going to really focus on, 3 things that they really want to make sure don't slide over the next month. And then we put it on a continuum, a health continuum. So for instance, if we just looked at water intake, I would say, what is on an average day, how much water do you consume? And you'd say, well, you tell me, how much water do you consume on an average day?
I have no idea, but a ton. It's
Okay.
hot here.
Okay. So yours would be pretty high on that continuum. And then I'd say, what do you consume on a bad day or a terrible day? And you say maybe a liter. So that would kind of be the 1 on your health continuum is 1 liter. And then your 10 out of 10 would be what you consider perfect or what you're shooting towards. And we try to place that person on that continuum. Where are you right now from 1 to 10? And we do that with all 3 of their bare ass minimums. And we focus, instead of focusing on moving the really good days and the average days up, we focus on making the bad days a little bit better. And we always try to move your bad days or your worst days up on that continuum so that your average and your best in turn get better. And then as we move new continuums in, okay, now we're going to focus on fitness and we're going to move water out because it's already part of your normal routine. We do that kind of one at a time as we advance through their goals, but we don't let those bare ass minimums slide on the ones that they're no longer top priorities.
Right. How do you track all that stuff?
With goals, it depends on the client. Actually, what I've found, we've played around with a few different things, but what we've found for some people works, it doesn't for others. So we use Trainerize. In Trainerize, you can set the habit goals. They can check them off. Some people love that. Some people don't use it at all. And if they're not checking it off, it doesn't mean that they're not doing it. So we've played around with putting check marks on calendars or just having honest feedback reports like once a week. Like, how did you do this week? Rate your week on a scale of 1 to 10. What went well? What didn't go well? So there's been a lot of meeting each client in the middle at what works well for them.
Mm-hmm. Cool, man.
One thing I wanted to ask you is, do you still find that you have health or fitness specific goals for yourself?
I'm going to give you a corollary here.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a corollary before I give you my answer. How's that?
Okay. Yep.
I've never had health and fitness specific goals.
Okay.
I don't do well with goal setting. I've never liked goal setting for myself. I've always been very intrinsically motivated. I've always been very routine oriented. So I've never needed them. And so, no, I don't.
Okay.
Doesn't mean I'm not motivated. Doesn't mean that I don't want to, keep moving forward, but it has nothing to do with goals. And that drives my trainer right now crazy because he's like, yeah, send me pictures. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. But, I'm making great progress, but I don't know where I'm going. Like, I don't like putting but at the same time, I've never struggled with my weight. I mean, the only struggle that I've had with my weight is not weighing enough. I mean, I went to university 105 pounds soaking wet. And so for me, putting on weight and keeping on weight is always the struggle, which is the opposite problem than a lot of people. I also don't particularly like food for the most part. I find it a nuisance a lot of the time. And so I'll just eat the same thing every day. Like, I don't care. And so all of this to say, I don't have the same kind of struggles that I think a lot of our clients do. And it's hard for me as a result. Like, that's why I never did any nutrition coaching, because I couldn't really connect on it. I didn't really get it. I'm like, just don't eat the snack food. Like, it's not even that good anyway. Like, what are you talking about? Right? But So goal setting has never been anything that I've done, really. I just love to train, to be honest.
Interesting.
I love to work out. I love how it makes me feel. I love how it makes me feel with my wife. You know, I like to be able to, every year my friends keep getting fatter and slower and I stay in the same shape or get in better shape. So I kick the shit out of them increasingly more and more and more, playing beer league sports every year. Like, I like that. I like being the dad at the park who's throwing his kid up and down.
Cool.
You know, that's why I do it. And so, and again, you know, going back to it, it's mental health for me. Like,
Totally.
days I train are always better days than days I don't train.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. So as somebody who's probably had more interaction with coaches and personal trainers and fitness trainers and nutrition coaches than anybody I know, what do you just mentioned that you work with a coach? What do you look for in a coach? How do you make that decision?
I look for somebody that I like and trust, somebody that I can be myself with, that I don't feel like I need to sugarcoat anything. When things aren't good, I feel comfortable telling them. When things are good, I feel like they really want to celebrate along with me. I generally work with coaches who I've known for a long time as well, just because, you know, I know a lot of people in the industry. And then the final thing is somebody who's kind of, you know, takes an approach that vibes with me. For example, the coach that I'm working with now is Brian Cron. And the reason why he vibes with me, you know, I've known him for a long time. I've known him for a decade, and this is the first time I've ever worked with him, but he specializes in working with guys that are sort of over 40, over 50 years old, who love to lift and who like the aesthetic part of lifting. And you know, I'm 36 years old, but I can start to feel my body not recovering the same way. I've got aches and pains. I'm like, I should probably get ahead of this. Like, I don't need to beat up my body, right? So, you know, to train with somebody who really understands, guys who like to train hard, who like to train often and can put protocols together that don't, quite frankly, beat the shit out of your body.
Yeah.
Was appealing. And then somebody who's kind of like, well, I basically just want to look really good and not hurt. I don't actually care that much how I perform. If
that's a goal too, though, right?
Sense? Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. So for me, it's aesthetics, and that's fine. Like, it's ego driven for me. I just like walking around feeling like I look good, but also I work in the fitness industry.
Yeah,
it kind of matters how I look, even though I predominantly teach business and teach coaches how to coach. It kind of matters. Like, kind of still matters how I look.
Totally.
And so that was all important to me. You know, maybe at one point I'll choose an athletic coach, but I'm not sprinting anywhere. Like,
yeah.
I can run faster than my kid for a lot of years still, you know. It's not going to be an issue.
It's just going to be so devastating though when you can't.
I know.
I think about that a lot. Like, the day that they become stronger, faster, more athletic, like, that's devastating.
You just got to get it in now. You just got to dunk a ball in their face as many times as possible. Just get that in, get that feeling, just get deep in your soul.
So I think I'm similar, like very similar to you in this sense, is that I feel often at my best when I'm working with coaches. I like to work with coaches in fitness, in nutrition, in business, and it often doesn't have anything to do with me not knowing what I need to do or what I need to do next, but I enjoy the accountability and I like having somebody else looking in on my situation. One thing though that I was asked recently by a client, and I'm curious to your explanation to this, is do you think that we as people or clients in general need coaches forever?
Oh, that's a damn good question. Do I think that people need coaches forever? It's a damn good question. I'm not sure. I put it this way. I don't think that you need a coach forever. I think you'll benefit from a coach forever.
Mm.
And I'm somebody who hasn't hired a lot of coaches. I've hired a lot of fitness coaches. I haven't hired a lot of business coaches.
Sure.
I've actually never hired a business coach. I have an executive coach who I work with right now, who I speak to once every 2 or 3 weeks. And basically it's just somebody who's been there, done that, who can help me navigate tough situations sometimes, or just somebody to talk to about how I'm feeling, right? Never had a business coach. But fitness coaches I really like. And actually, we going back to traveling, I've hired coaches all around the world.
Mm.
And it's been really interesting because it's expanded my horizons as a coach myself.
Yeah.
For example,
absolutely.
I lived in a little town called Amudara in Crete in Greece. And I walked by, there wasn't really a gym in town. There was a gym in Heraklion, which was like a 25-minute bus ride away. But I walked by a little hotel and there was a little training studio in the front of it. So I knocked on the door, and the guy who runs the little training studio is the son of the person who owns the hotel. Got in touch with him, and he's an endurance athlete. So I trained like an endurance athlete for 3 months while I lived there.
Cool.
Right. I went for runs with him. I do sets of 50 bench presses. Right after that, we went to Montenegro in the Balkans. And in Montenegro, we lived in a town called Kotor for 3 months. In Kotor, there's one gym. In that one gym is one trainer who owns the gym. I hired him to train me for 3 months. He's an old school Eastern Bloc barbell 5x5 trainer, right? All barbell lifts. And so I trained like that for 3 months.
Cool.
When I lived in Costa Rica, Ricardo has a jungle fit gym called Nosara Functional Fitness. And he trains with the TAC Fit system, for anybody familiar with that, in the jungle. He's built a little basically thing of a bunch of like handles and bows and that kind of stuff. And it's mostly body weight training and then club bells and whatever it is. So I lived in Nosara twice. So I trained with him twice for a total of 6 months. Everything has just expanded my love and passion for this thing. And also my acceptance that there's just so many ways to do it.
Mm.
Did I need any of those people experiences? Nah, I've been in the gym for 15, 20 years. I'm 20 years now. I mean, I was a trainer for 8 years already, the first time that I ever did any of that. But it made me better.
Agreed.
Right? And so I love that. I mean, I love it. I can't think of a better way to spend my money. Also, another thing for anybody paying attention when you're traveling, it's a hell of a lot cheaper to hire trainers. It was 20 euros a session in Montenegro. What was it? Oh, in Mexico last year, no, 2 years ago, I hired a trainer. It was $13 a session. And she was a boxer. So I trained like a boxer for 2.5 months.
Cool.
So you can that's again, it just expands your horizon, right? There's so much out there that just makes you a more complete, and I mean, this isn't just a fitness thing. It just makes you kind of a more complete person. I have this really fundamental philosophy to my being professionally, personally, with my fitness, where single disciplines are just so inherently uninteresting to me.
For
what
sure.
matters, what matters and what's interesting is the intersection between disciplines. And when you also think about what's valued in our society these days, being good at something, who gives a shit? Computers, anything that you can become good at, that's a single discipline where there's an established way to do something, computers do better than you.
Especially if you aren't going to become the absolute best.
Even if you are, I can make a very compelling argument that a computer algorithm can build a better fitness program than 98% of personal trainers. Where trainers really come in is they combine the skills and approaches like you have with your experiences. right? Who cares about the workout program? The workout program is so far down the line of what's important.
Yeah.
What is valued, I mean, this goes into any career, this goes into anything that you're doing. What's valued is the intersection between bodies of knowledge and being able to put that together in a way that is unique to you. That's why it's important to read opinions of people you disagree with. That's why it's important to read books about subjects that are unrelated to your field, because that's how you become more valuable. There's a really fascinating thought experiment that I've always loved. This is from David Epstein in a book called Range. And you don't have to read the book. Basically, what I'm going to say is the whole book repeated over 300 pages. But it's a really great nonfiction books. Don't get me started. But basically one idea, but they have to sell it in the book. So they just put together 300 pages of fluff and stories. But the thought experiment is this, is what's more valuable? 10 experts who are absolutely world-class at their 10 individual fields working together, or one expert who's pretty good at all 10 things? And the answer to that question is the second. Because the first group is going to have a really hard time seeing anybody else's point of view, is going to have a really hard time finding the connections between all of those 10 things.
Interesting.
The second group, I mean, having like this like really extreme knowledge on the far end of the spectrum on something is kind of irrelevant in almost every case. Having good enough knowledge in a lot of different things is what becomes valuable. And so that's what I try to do to, I try to gain, call it the 80-20 to use an overused term. I try to gain the 80-20 of basically as many things as I can. For example, late last year, I went deep into reading about the psychology of money management. Beginning of this year, I went in deep learning about artificial intelligence and the redistribution of jobs and how that's going to affect it. So in 2 months, I read 7 books on the subject. I don't know anything about how to code artificial intelligence or what that even means.
Sure.
But I know enough now about what artificial intelligence is going to bring down the pipeline that I could start to envision solutions for. I can work with somebody to code it. Who gives a shit, right? The same thing with money management. Like, I don't know the ins and outs of index funds, but I know I have put down on paper my personal philosophy to how I manage money and what's important to my family and I. And as a result, I've done a damn good job managing our money for a few years now. And also, I know exactly what to ignore, not because I don't think that there's opportunity there, but because it's not the game that I want to play.
Right.
I don't care about swing trading NFTs. It's irrelevant to me.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's just, I can afford to miss out on that. So that's, I mean, that's a lot of why, I mean, going back to your coaching question, that's why I love just traveling, gaining new experiences, but also reading a whole bunch of random books. I mean, the next book, I'm reading Will Smith's book right now because my buddy Mark wrote it. But then the next book that I have to read is about a baseball manager named Billy Beane.
Cool.
Who was a New York Yankees manager, right? The book I read before that was a fantasy book. Like, that has like deep religious undertones. It's like, it's all different, but you gain something from every single one that makes you a more complete person who's able to look at things in a more complete way. I think that's pretty neat.
And I love when you read new books because I always read the books that you recommend.
Yeah, there you
go. Listen, John, I want to be respectful of your time, and I know that we're on our last minute, so I'm going to cut you off because I know you're a busy man, and I wish this could go longer, and maybe another day we'll get another chance to continue it. But I really want to say how much I appreciate you being here, and I think our audience is going to get a lot of value from this. So thanks for taking the time.
You got it. Good chatting, man.
Okay, John, take care.
Bye-bye.